Behold, the divine light guides us all.
Psalm 145. I will extol thee, my God, O King, and I will bless thy name forever and ever. Every day will I bless thee, and I will praise thy name forever and ever. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised, and his greatness is unsearchable. One generation shall praise thy works to another, and shall declare thy mighty acts. I will speak of the glorious honor of thy majesty, and of thy wondrous works. And men shall speak of the might of thy terrible acts, and I will declare thy greatness. They shall abundantly utter the memory of thy great goodness, and shall sing of thy righteousness. The Lord is gracious and full of compassion, slow to anger, and of great mercy. The Lord is good to all, and his tender mercies are over all his works. All thy works shall praise thee, O Lord, and thy saints shall bless thee. They shall speak of the glory of thy kingdom, and talk of thy power, to make known to the sons of men his mighty acts, and the glorious majesty of his kingdom. Thy kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and thy dominion endureth throughout all generations. The Lord upholdeth all that fall, and raiseth up all those that be bowed down. The eyes of all wait upon thee, and thou givest them their meat in due season. Thou openest thine hand, and satisfiest the desire of every living thing. The Lord is righteous in all his ways, and holy in all his works. The Lord is nigh unto all them that call upon him, to all that call upon him in truth. He will fulfill the desire of them that fear him. He also will hear them cry, and will save them. The Lord preserveth all them that love him, but all the wicked will he destroy. My mouth shall speak the praise of the Lord, and let all flesh bless his holy name forever. Show my love for thee.
Abanawa, Shabashimayim, Kodash, Haya, Shemka, Yahawa, Malakwatka, Taba'a, Ratazaka, Haya, Aisha, Ba'arataza, Kawa, Haya, Bashimayim, Nathanawa, Lakum, Kal Yawam, Wasalaklanawa, Khawabwatnawa, Kasalaknawa, Kawabwatinawa, Wala'a, Tabayanawa, Banasayawan. Abal, Haushai Nawa, Mayan, Rai Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwath, Waha Allah, Wahata Ba'arath, La Iwalamium, Aman.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders, the GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to us younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing this word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Shabbat Shah. All right, what I want to get into, all right, in this lesson is dealing with the blessed eunuchs. Okay, the blessed eunuchs. Okay, and we're going to get into that word eunuch, because, it's a term, that has been associated, strictly with a castrated man. Okay, but we're going to go into the scriptures and show you that there's a different meaning to that, and you go into the etymology of that word, Okay, we're gonna go into how it was later used to mean castrated man. That wasn't the original meaning of that word. Okay, but we're gonna get into it, and Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters are edified. Now let's go here in the book of Isaiah, all right, which this precept inspired the lesson. When you go to Isaiah 56:4, it said, "For thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shah unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbath, all right, and choose the things that please me and take hold of my covenant." Okay, so when you go into this word eunuch, you're gonna get the understanding of this word eunuch. Okay, because even when you just go here to the blue letter, okay, and you go to the blue letter, so you get that word in the Hebrew, all right, which in the Hebrew is Sarius, okay, Sayas, all right, Sayas in the Hebrew, and it says what an official or a eunuch. Okay, now when you go down, it goes into to castrate when you go into the Strong's. Okay, but then when you keep going, it says in dust, it says a minister of state. Okay, a chamberlain, a officer. Okay, a minister of state. Okay, a chamberlain and an officer. And in this context, this is what this word is meaning in the context, okay, of the word eunuch in this scripture. Okay, because you did have eunuchs that were castrated and they would, watch the bed chambers of the king. Okay, and they would be castrated men. But then you had a eunuch. Okay, there was a minister of the state. There was a chamberlain. There was a royal official. Okay, hence Daniel. Okay, Daniel wasn't castrated. Okay, he was a minister of the state of Babylon. Okay, and later the Medo-Persian Empire. Okay, he was a royal officer, administrator. Okay, and that's the role that we play. All right, because the scriptures say, "Well, we're ministered. We have ministered in His name." Okay, so let's get a little backdrop on that word eunuch. Okay, and then we'll go back into the precept. So you go here to the chat. Okay, dealing with the word eunuch. Okay, so what is the etymology of the word eunuch? Okay, and what are the different types of eunuchs and their roles? And it says etymology of the word eunuch. The English word eunuch comes from the ancient Greek. Okay, so it shows you that we didn't even have that word eunuch in the Hebrew in our vocabulary. Okay, that's a word that will come along in the time of the Greeks. Okay, but it just described. All right, it was a word used to describe Daniel. Okay, as a royal administrator. Okay, and it says it entered English through Latin, eunuchus, and Middle English, eunuch. Okay, so that's a newer word. All right, so it's not even rooted in Hebrew. Okay, it says the most widely accepted etymology. Okay, is une, which is bed. All right, and ekin, okay, which is to hold guard and to keep guard. So literally meant guardian of the bed. And it says originally it referred to a palace official who guarded the royal bedchamber, especially the quarters of queens or concubines, because such guards were often castrated, and this what the heathen would do this, to ensure they posed no sexual threat. The word gradually came to mean a castrated man in general. Okay, so it gradually became to mean a castrated man in general. Okay, so it later on became a word meant to describe a man that was castrated. okay, that worked in the palace, okay? But when you go into Daniel, all right, it was not so, because when you go here, and this is the type of eunuchs we are when you go into, let's go here, they're dealing with Daniel because that's the best example, okay? Now, when you go here, I asked it, what kind of eunuch would Daniel have been based on Hebrew law? It says, so when you go here, all right, it says why Daniel sometimes thought to be a eunuch. In the book of Daniel, Daniel and the other young Judeans are taken to serve the court of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. They were placed under the authority, all right, of Ashpenaz, described as the chief of eunuchs, because Daniel served in a department. Some scholars suggest he may have been castrated, but that wasn't the case. Okay, and we're going to go into it. It says another biblical passage, sometimes connected to this idea, is a prophecy that descendants of Hezekiah will become eunuchs in the palace of Babylon. When you read Isaiah 39:7, okay, Isaiah told Hezekiah, all right, that his descendants will become eunuchs, okay, in Babylon. Okay, and Daniel was of the royal lineage, so some think the prophecy applied to him, which he did. Okay, now you go into the Hebrew law, okay, Deuteronomy 23:1, okay, it spoke against a man, okay, destroying, his genitals, okay, that's the law when you go to Deuteronomy 23:1, okay. Now it says another meaning of eunuch in ancient courts, and this the main point. It says in the ancient Near East, the word translated eunuch did not always mean castrated. Okay, it said the Hebrew word "sars" could mean, all right, a literal castrated man or a high royal official. There are several biblical examples where the term clearly means court officer, not a castrated man. Therefore, Daniel could simply have been a royal administrator, okay, a royal administrator, which that's what he was. Okay, he was a president, okay, all right, he was a chief president. Even the other presidents had to answer to him. Okay, Babylon had three presidents. There was uh, uh, the Medo-Persian Empire had three presidents. Okay, and 127 provinces. Okay, and those governors of those provinces answered to those three presidents, and of those three presidents, the two had to answer to Daniel. Okay, so he was a royal administrator, a court advisor, a trained bureaucrat in the king's service, a trained bureaucrat in the king's service, and that's what we are. Okay, a bureaucrat is someone who's unelected but chosen, okay, to be part of the government, all right, as an official of a government. You see, when you go into a bureaucrat, it's a non-elected official of a government, okay? And we know we're chosen, our writers are, we're chosen and we're being trained in the king's service, okay? So that's when you go into eunuch. This is the context of Daniel 56, I mean, not Daniel, or Isaiah 56, all right, and 4, when it speaks of a eunuch, it's speaking of, in this context, man, a court advisor, a royal administrator, a trained bureaucrat in the king's service. Okay? So when you read this again down here, and then go back to Isaiah, let's read this a little bit down here. Okay? It says, many modern biblical historians think Daniel was probably not physically castrated, which you know he wasn't. He held high political authority later in the book. The Hebrew term can mean court official. The text never explicitly says he was castrated. Okay? So, in the interpretation, Daniel would have been a court eunuch in an administrative sense, meaning a palace official trained for royal service. Okay, and we're being trained for royal service. Okay, we're being refined and purified for royal service to be joint heirs with Yahushua. So that's the blessed eunuch. Okay, and Isaiah. So let's go back to Isaiah. Now that we understand his word eunuch. Okay, so let's go here. Back to Isaiah 56 and 4. All right, Isaiah 56 and 4 said, "For thus said the Lord, Yahweh Bashim al Shah, unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbath." Okay, so those eunuchs, okay, are those royal administrators. Okay, those bureaucrats is being trained in the service of the king, because we're being trained to serve the king. Okay, we're being trained and groomed to be joint heirs. Okay, it said they keep my Sabbaths and choose the things that please me and keep his Sabbaths is obedience. We rehearse the righteous acts. We keep the Sabbath, we keep uh, the parts of the law we can keep to the best of our ability. Our intent is to be obedient best as we can in this flesh and in this setup. Okay, and we choose the things that please our power. Okay, and what's pleasing to our power says to take hold of my covenant and have faith. Okay, and Yahweh Shai, he's coming with that new covenant. Okay, so those eunuchs, all right, those royal administrators being trained in the service of the king, okay, that's being obedient, rehearsing the righteous acts, okay, and choosing the things that please me and take hold of my covenant, which let's say that new covenant is coming with Yahushua. And in order to take hold of that new covenant, you have to believe Yahushua is coming back. We have to believe that he resurrected. Okay, we have to believe that we're covered for the sins we can't, for the laws we can't keep. We got to have faith that we're covered, okay, under Yahushua in this grace period, which is leading us to this new covenant. Okay, and it says, and choose the things that please me. And what the scriptures say? Let's go here real quick. The things that please our power. So let's go here to look at Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7. Because now the Lord has raised up teachers, okay, that's feeding us with knowledge and understanding, and we're being taught on how to be pleasing to our power, okay, because we understand the Bible is a book, okay, of instructions and righteousness, okay. So you go here to Wisdom of Solomon, okay, and this is speaking of wisdom. Wisdom of Solomon 7 and 27 says, "And being but one, she can do all things, and remaining in herself, she maketh all things new." Being born again through this wisdom that's pleasing to our power, to see, okay, the hopeful elect be born again through this wisdom that's pleasing, okay, and in all ages enter into holy souls, all right, those that were separated from the beginning, predestined for salvation. She maketh them friends of the Most High and prophets, okay, for the Most High loveth none but him that dwelleth with wisdom. Okay, so dwelling with wisdom is pleasing to our power. Dwelling with this wisdom, operating in the wisdom of the scriptures is pleasing to our power. Okay, and we're those eunuchs, okay, those royal administrators being trained for the service of the king. Okay, we reverence the law, we keep it to the best of our ability, as reverencing the law, keeping the Sabbath. All right, as far because one thing we can't control, because some of us have to work on Sabbath. Okay, well, we can control not dealing with your woman. That's something that we can control. Okay, but ultimately, just speaking of rehearsing the righteous acts, man. Okay, to the best of our ability with through faith. And we heard the righteous acts through faith. And faith that we're covered for what we fall short. Okay, by Yahweh, which is bringing us a new covenant, which we're going to be changed. Okay, and which we're going to be changed, man. All right, so go from there. Let's go back here and let's get this because Yahweh mentioned. Let me go to Matthew chapter 19. All right, Matthew chapter 19. All right, this is Matthew chapter 19 and verse 12. It says, "For there are some eunuchs, all right, which were so born from their mother's womb, and there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men." So you had eunuchs, that had, uh, you know, they had dysfunctional members. Okay, they members were dysfunctional. Okay, and it says, and there are some, all right, certain can't have children. Certain men can't, bear children. Okay, or can't produce, children. You see, or some other, dysfunction with their member. Okay, so they were born, all right, from their womb. Okay, and some eunuchs which were made eunuchs, okay, of men. Some men, all right, were actually castrated, okay, and placed over the bed chambers of, okay, the king. Okay, it says, and there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Okay, so making yourself a eunuch for the kingdom of heaven's sake, would you have, brothers that don't deal, with women. Certain brothers of the faith don't deal with women. Okay, but then you have those that are, all right, because you got brothers within the faith that don't deal with women, but we all had to separate, all right, because you go into the concept of castration. Okay, it's a separation of something vital, and in the truth, we've given up on things that was important to us in this world. We've completely been separated from things that was once important to us in this world for the sake of the kingdom. Okay, to be available. Okay, to be trained up, because in order to be trained up to serve, all right, the king, to serve Yahweh Bashim Al Shah, in order to be trained up to do that, well, there's certain things that have to be cut off because we have to have availability. In order to be trained up in the service of the king, well, we have to have availability. And there's certain things that, that was important to us that we had to cut off. And there's still particular things that we're cutting off, okay, based on this faith, man. Okay, on our pursuit to the kingdom. So those eunuchs, all right, it says, and there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Okay, so those in this time, okay, the men of the hopeful elect, all right, the things that we have to cut off, okay, and separate from in order to what? Be available to be trained up in the service of the king. Okay, I say you do have, brothers that don't deal. Okay, but overall, it's speaking of separating from things that are vital. Okay, things that was once, important to us. Say that things that were once important to us. Okay, we had to separate for the sake of Yahushua in pursuit of the kingdom. So when you go here, an example is when you go to Matthew chapter 5. All right, it's the book of Matthew chapter 5 in verse 29. And it said, And if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee, for it is profitable that for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not thy whole body should be cast into hell, which is just destruction, the nuclear destruction. Okay, it says, and if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not thy whole body should be cast into hell. So let's get this word offend, because it's not speaking about literally cutting off okay your hand or plucking out your eye. Okay, so what is this speaking of? Okay, let's go here to the word offend, scandalizio. Okay, you get in Greek scandalizio.
Strong's G 4624, Scandalizo. Scandalizo.
Okay, so when you go into it, you see, it says to put a stumbling block or impediment in the way upon which another may trip or fall, metaphorically to offend, to entice to sin, to cause a person to begin to distrust, okay, and desert one whom he ought to trust and obey. Okay, so something that offends us, that we looked at as important. There's certain things I knew I had to stop doing. It wasn't against the law, okay, but I knew it would become an impediment on my growth in the spirit. Okay, and there's certain things, especially when we fresh out of the world, there's certain things that we into. Okay, it's not even against the law, but it can become an impediment. Okay, on us being trained up in the service of the King. You see, so there's certain things, all right, and it's different for each brother that we have to cut off because it's an impediment. Okay, it's in the way. It can become a stumbling block. Okay, we can be torn between two separate obligations because you can only serve one. You can't serve the Most High Mammon, which is Mammon is this world of the okay. So when you go into plucking out your eyes, speaking about cutting something off that was once important. Your right hand is cutting something off that was most important. I mean, that was once important. Okay. You keep reading, it says to cause to fall away. Certain things that we was once a part of, we had to separate. Because it could be the cause of a falling away. Some brothers, have went back into the world because they never cut certain things off, and they went back to that thing that they was into in the world. Brothers in this camp, is a brother in this camp, okay, that did that, man. Okay, he couldn't cut off a particular thing in the world, okay, and it caused him to fall away. Okay, he couldn't separate himself from it. You see, and I know brothers have plenty of counts. Brothers in the camp with certain things they couldn't cut certain things away, and that became their reason to fall because they couldn't cut it. They couldn't cut it off. You see. So let's go back. Okay. So we, had to cut things off. Okay. So we can be a better service to our power. Certain things we have to cut off so we can be better fit to serve and be trained up. Okay, the service of Yahweh Bashem Al Shah. Which ultimately is being a joint heir. Okay. And that's why even you go here to because in order to be trained up, okay, we have to have what? The free time. Okay, we gotta have their time. So certain things have to be cut off to create availability, okay, for the king. Proverbs 18:1 said, through desire, a man having separated himself. You see that? Seeking an intermediate with all things. Okay? So through desire of the kingdom, through desire of the kingdom, we begin to separate ourselves, cut things off. Okay, so we can tap in the medley with all wisdom, with the wisdom of, all right, the scriptures, man. Okay, so there's a separation that's necessary. All right, even to go into Daniel, his story, he had to be separated from the rest of the captives. Him and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they had to be separated and trained up in order to be in the courts of Nebuchadnezzar. They had to be separated and trained up. Okay? Matter of fact, let's get it. All right? They had to be separated from the rest of the captives. Okay? Just like now, we've been separated from the rest of the captives because we all still in captivity. Okay? But within captivity, we've been separated. Okay? And groomed up. And we're being groomed up in the king's courts. Okay? To serve in the king's courts. All right, so let's go here. Yep, so let's go here. It says, this is Daniel 1-3. It says, the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, of the king's seed, and of the princes. Okay, their royal seed. Okay, so you have in this time, there's particular children of Israel, okay, and they're being separated. Okay, the sons of God are being separated and trained up. Okay, it said children, all right, in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning, all right, in the tongue of the Chaldeans. So they was being trained to be of service to the king of Babylon. At this time, it was Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, we've been separated and we're being trained up, okay, in the ways of Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua. Okay, so we can eternally serve the king. Okay, as joint heirs. You see? So let's go here. Let's get this real quick. Let's get this in the book of get this in Sirach. I believe it's chapter 38. I believe it's Sirach 38 and 24. Okay, yep. Sirach 38 and 24. It said, the wisdom of a learned man cometh by opportunity of leisure. Okay, and he that have little business shall become wise. Okay, so in order to become wise, we begin to have to cut things off. Okay, we have to cut things off. Certain things are castrated, okay, from us, man. Okay, that creates that leisure, okay, and that little business for us to become wise in serving the king, serving Yahweh Bashim Al Shah. Okay, so these are those eunuchs, all right, that are blessed. You see, it begins with the hopeful elect men. Okay, which under that you're gonna have, all right, men, women, and children. Or the 1/3, or the rest of the 1/3 is gonna be delivered. Okay, but those first fruit of Arazazah, those men have to sacrifice more than everyone else because there's more required of them. Okay, and we all have things that we have to cut off. Some more than others, and especially on the first fruits. There's more that's required because much has been given. Okay, so matter of fact, let me pull it up. So let's go back here. Let's go back to Daniel. Go back to Isaiah. So let's get this in the book of Luke. Okay, because remember, eunuch goes into royal administrator, ministers of the king. Okay, so when you go here to the book of Luke, chapter this book of Luke, chapter 12, and verse 41, it said, Then Peter said unto him, Lord, speakest thou this parable unto us, or even unto all? And the Lord said, Who then is that faithful and wise steward, whose Lord shall make ruler over his household, to give him their portion of meat in due season? All right, now when you go into this word steward, okay, get this word steward.
Strong's G 3623. Akoinamas. Akoinamas.
Okay, namas. All right, and it says what the manager of household or household affairs. Okay, like a what, a royal administrator. Okay, a steward, a manager, a superintendent, whether freeborn or was usually the case, a free man or a slave. Okay, so a steward, you have one of your servants that you will put over the other servants. Okay, in a lot of cases, you see, it says to manage, the manager of a farm, a landed estate, or overseer. Okay, the superintendent of a city's finance, the treasurer of a city, or the treasurer of a quaestors of kings. Okay, so he's a royal administrator. Okay, he was an administrator. All right, so that will be the same as what, a eunuch. Okay, so he could have said that faithful and wise eunuch. Okay, whom his Lord shall make ruler over his household, to give them their portion of meat in due season, which is to attend the affairs of the house. Okay, right now in the house of David, which is the hopeful elect, where we have to attend the affairs of the house of David to give them their meat. Okay, which is the truth, is understanding in due season. Okay, which what your servants will have to eat what daily. Okay, so you're making sure that as a body, because we're a body, you know, We got brothers, okay, with different gifts, okay, different talents, okay, and the house is being taken care of. Okay, you know, the maintenance of the house is being tended to, the maintenance of the servants is being tended to. Okay, it says, "Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Of a truth I say unto you, that he will make him ruler over all that he hath." Okay, so those servants, those blessed servants, those blessed eunuchs, okay, that are found, okay, handling the affairs of the king, okay, who have been faithful in the affairs tasked to them, their assignment, you know, because we all been given an assignment in this thing, man. Okay, and those that have been faithful to that assignment, okay, are going to be blessed at the return of Yahushua. They're going to be upgraded from stewards, okay, and eunuchs to joint heirs. Okay, they're going to be promoted. And you see, so that's that blessed eunuch in Isaiah 56:4. All right. So that's the point. You know, just want to tap into that, Lord will, you brothers. And you so solidify once again. I'm going to give all praise and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahushua, by Hashem, Kakadash. And double honors to the apostles and elders, GMS, who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his young brothers. And peace and blessings and salutations